Ahoy, everyone. You know what time it is. Time for me to blather on for your entertainment. Um, yeah, so it won't always be dominated by my gigantic head. But tonight, the plan is to read two more parts of my essay tribute to Chester Bennington. Oh dear. Unflatter. You may have guessed this by now, but I'm very, not good at getting angles. And I'm very unflattering of myself. So, last time we did, let me see, part 9 and part 10, probably, part 8. Alright, so, part 11, Recharge. The less said about this, the better. It had its moments, especially A Light That Never Comes, which showed me the potential of Steve Aoki. But the memory that stands out most clearly about the day I got this album was getting a case of Hell or High Water. Hell or High Watermelon beer. I think since I got it from Record and Tape Traders, it was the same day I found the TARDIS socks for Allie and sent them to her later that week. As you probably gather from the cluster of footnotes, this was deemed my least favorite official LP album, and that ranking has held up in the last 6 years. It does to Living Things what Reanimation did to Hybrid Theory, but for whatever reason I can't bring myself to enjoy it more. 2 years after writing this essay, the same holds true. Anyways, on to part 12, The Hunting Party. Here we go. LP seems to follow patterns in the creation of their albums, because roughly a year after Recharge, there came The Hunting Party. After 1,000 Suns came and went, it seemed like LP was on a creative lull. But then we got Living Things, Recharged, and The Hunting Party in 3 straight years. This one came out in 2014, and it's hard to believe that 7 have passed already. To this day, I still think that my favorite part was all of the guest appearances on this album, especially from collaborators they hadn't featured before, like Darren Malakian or Tom Morello. So that's the end of the Chester segment for tonight. I know last night I did a countdown, but I'll space that out every so often, and I might just go ahead and do, well, Everything That Rises Must Converge will wait until after the Chester series is done, so that'll probably be included on the July 21st video. I'm going to go in a different direction now. Pull up the underneath. At least I didn't sneeze on screen. So, yeah, there's the underneath. It's on my blog. Apparently I wrote it last September, or at least that's when the last edit was. So here we go. The Underneath, a yarn by me. And let's magnify. Alright. 18-year-old Scarlett loved to explore the woods behind her house. As far as she had known, she had lived there all her life. In the foothill, all her life in the foothills of the Adirondacks. She spent every day getting to know the leaves, streams, and fallen logs. Sometimes she would bring her camera with her, and sometimes not. It all depended on if the light was just right or not. Of course, this was just a hobby for when she didn't feel like studying, or she wasn't in the mood to edit the photos she had already taken. She also liked to collect shiny pebbles that she would find along the way, and on occasion a lucky penny, no matter how rusty it was. Her mother, Autumn, had raised her to be a superstitious kind of girl. But she had never known who her father was. She just assumed that Autumn was a single mother. But now that Scarlet was on the doorstep of adulthood, she wondered why. She was going away to college soon at the University of Rochester, even though she had been homeschooled almost all her life until high school. There were rumors in town that her mother was a woods witch, whatever that was. Why exactly should she keep listening to her mother? Scarlet was almost a woman full grown herself, but she kept this resentful thought to herself. Her aunties Aislinn and Aurora. Can anyone tell me how to pronounce that correctly? It's spelled Aislin, but I've never been sure how to pronounce it correctly, so I'll probably go Google that after this. It's a super pretty name, though. Her aunties, Aurora, also live with them. Although Scarlet never really understood why. She just knew that her aunties had always told her not to go too deep into the woods, especially by herself. Autumn would always look away whenever her aunties started in on their same old lectures. It was almost as if her mother wished she could be almost anywhere else in the world at that moment. Strangely, no matter where she was standing, her mother would always look in the direction of the woods, as though there was some great sacred secret that none of the grown-ups in her life would let her know about, no matter how often she pestered them to tell her already. Today was her half-birthday. 6 months to go until she turned 19. On this day, she planned to fill a rucksack with all the snacks, water, and other supplies she needed to camp out in the woods. She had spent the last 6 weeks befriending a crow she had encountered one day. A curious little thing that she sensed was a kindred spirit of hers. She had decided to name this crow Midnight, since it was about that time she had found the crow. It had a broken wing that she tended from her little campsite under a shelter she had built with logs and leaves and a blue vinyl tarp that had been left behind who knows how long ago. But the bird had recovered and brought her shiny pebbles every day, leaving them in a neat ring in her little tent every time she came back to it. What? Wait, where's your toy? Go get your toy. Summer was coming to an end, and once she started school, she wouldn't have nearly as much time to explore until the semester finished. That meant it was now or never. When she got back to her hidden tent as dusk approached, she found that Midnight was sitting inside the ring of stones that he usually left for her. He was cawing in an unusual way, as if he were trying to talk to her. She threw him a puzzled look, but the bird just stared back at her, as enigmatic as ever. She lit the old-fashioned lantern she kept in the tent for whenever she lost track of time and it got too dark outside. Then she opened the trunk where she kept her spare supplies and gear, the trunk where she kept her spare supplies and gear in when she didn't need them. She pulled out a flashlight and checked the battery to make sure it hadn't corroded yet. It was fine. A sudden shiver shot up and down her spine, taking her breath away for a moment. She shook her strawberry blonde hair out of her eyes and rubbed at her eyes before looking around for Midnight. The little crow had inclined his head towards the flap into the tent before taking wing. Frowning, Scarlet adjusted the pack on her back and slung the flashlight on a carabiner she kept on her belt. She followed her feathery friend back out and looked around for where he was. He was sitting on a leaning tree branch that she had never noticed before. When she approached, the crow croaked approvingly, as if beckoning her closer. So she did, and walked closer to the tree that Midnight was sitting on. It was here that she saw something else that astounded her. a trail of old coins and shiny pebbles that led away deeper into the forest. She could see something twinkling in the distance like a comet of fireflies. Before she took another step, Scarlet realized that going down this path would lead her deeper into the woods than she had ever dared go. I know, I see the smile on your face. "Where are you leading me, little one?" she murmured, although she knew that as intelligent as he was, Midnight would never be able to respond, at least not with words. Still, she kept going, every hesitant step bringing her closer to her goal. She could already tell something was different the more she followed her familiar. The air smelled different, the water sounded louder, and the trees whispered to her as if